You're either a Hall of Famer or you're not. I don't want to hear the first ballot stuff. You shouldn't get in on the first ballot. You and I had that conversation. We'll have it again now. But to me, he's a Hall of Famer, so he should get in. It's not, well, he's a Hall of Famer, but in 2 years or in 3 years. I think Eli got screwed last night.
I don't. I'm surprised he didn't get in, but I don't think he got screwed. I don't think Eli's a first ballot Hall of Famer. Now, listen, I understand what you're saying. When I go back to my core principles, I agree. You know, I watch you watch a player. This goes back to baseball more than anything. I watch so-and-so their entire career. Hall of Famer, yes or no? Like, you kind of know right away. And, you know, Eli, who had several all-time moments and is eventually going to get in the Hall of Fame, and he's got a lot of numbers to back that up. Some of that a byproduct of longevity. He played for a long time, was very durable, which is also part, I think, of his ultimate greatness. But I think that because the Hall of Fame process is what it is, we're almost forced to delineate between first ballot or not. How long should you wait? And it's unfair because at the core, I agree with you. Are you a Hall of Famer or not? But we didn't create these boundaries. We didn't make this criteria. So based on that, I do not believe Eli's a first ballot Hall of Famer.
Well, and Eli is also a unique case in that if not for two of the more incredible runs that the sport has ever seen, he would not be a Hall of Famer, right? So if it were those two Super Bowls to cap off an otherwise stellar, statistical career, an MVP-laden career, whatever, then it'd be a no-brainer. But the thing that gets Eli into the Hall of Fame eventually, at least I would expect, is going to be the two Super Bowl runs. But and to me, it's the same philosophy I would have with baseball. Like, I know baseball is maybe less about first ballot. It feels like unanimous now is a thing.
Yeah, that's true.
CC Sabathia shouldn't have been a quote-unquote first ballot Hall of Famer. He's not as good as Tom Seaver or Bob Gibson or the top guys in the sport. All right, you want to say he's a Hall of Famer? I think he's a borderline Hall of Famer. As a matter of fact, I wouldn't put CC in the Hall of Fame, but he gets in on the first ballot. So the same thing with Eli, who did win the two Super Bowls. I think he's a Hall of Famer because of that. And it's not just the two Super Bowls. It's the way that he won the Super Bowls. Like, it wasn't just those two games. It was the runs both times leading up to them, not to mention beating Tom Brady twice in the process, the greatest of all time. So therefore, in my mind, I think he's a Hall of Famer. If I am voting, I don't say, well, he's a Hall of Famer, but tomorrow I say he's either a Hall of Famer or he's not.
Yeah, listen, when you get to this level of analysis, I think for me, there's a way to try to simplify it, and this isn't good for everybody. Not everybody will do this, and it works for me. Like, if I'm starting a team tomorrow, how many quarterbacks, not for all time, obviously, because that's way too easy, but how many quarterbacks within the generation of Eli do I deem more appealing, more attractive than Eli? Meaning I have access to all those guys, right? The Matt Ryans, the Big Bens, the Phillip Riverses, the Brady. Well, and like, it's not necessarily just his era, but maybe 5 to 7 years before it, 5 to 7 years after it. And I got to be honest with you, like, he's low on the list for me. And when you come to that conclusion, which I do, then the tormenting part of it, or the complicating part, God, I am so freaking itchy right now.
Yeah.
I'm sweating. I can't do the show.
Looks good on you. You're going to have to.
But every time I scratch,
then you get red.
I get red, and everything. I'm wearing white like I'm going to my communion at the age of 51. I'm a little late to the altar, Father. Pardon me.
Paper towel.
Thank you very much. So, but now when I look at it from a historical perspective, through that lens, through that prism, I'm like, oh boy, I know it's kind of corny, but you literally can't write the history of the NFL without Eli Manning. So I guess I stopped getting too wrapped up in first ballot or just a Hall of Famer, because I think if you do that, it's almost, it takes away the joy of it. I look at Eli, and I know he was good, and I know he was durable. In my mind, he was not an all-time quarterback. That's just my opinion. But I also weirdly, or oddly, because I can't contradict myself here, think that he should and he will eventually get in the Hall of Fame.
Well, that's why we have a conflict in where we say, like, I think he's a Hall of Famer, so I would have him in. You think he's a Hall of Famer, but you kind of agree with the voters.
I do.
You think he's a Hall of Famer, but one that's not worthy of getting in on the first 100%. Ballot. So now kick this down the road. And we talked about, I don't even know how this works. So what does this mean? Next year he's going to be eligible now with a bunch of others. So Drew Brees
will be up next year.
Okay, so he's going to get in probably.
Oh, absolutely.
All right, well, or first ballot?
I think should. Who do you think's better, Drew or Eli?
Yeah,
That's not even close.
I know, but Eli went on two of the more incredible
Who's the
runs.
better quarterback, Sal? It's Drew Brees by a mile.
But I could say, like, I think Matt Ryan was better than Drew Brees. So the only thing missing was the Super Bowl, and Matt Ryan really should have had that. So, but just because of the way that game ended, we're going to say, oh, Drew Brees, no doubt about it, first ballot Hall of Famer. But Matt Ryan might not get in one day, or Eli Manning, who did win 2 Super Bowls, is less than. Like, what are we valuing? Are we valuing
the meat of one's career?
Not the impact on the sport.
That's where it gets twisted. Understood. I look at from the moment you come in as a rookie to the last snap that you take. That is a long,
Let me ask you this way.
body of work.
This is an interesting way to put it. You had one game to win.
Yep.
The ultimate game, pressure, Super Bowl, whatever, postseason.
Got it.
Eli or Drew Brees?
I
mean, it's a fascinating.
It's a hard one because I know what I know.
Yeah. Right, that Brees has been the the stat. I don't want to say compiler. That's disrespectful. Brees has been the stat guy, the regular season guy, putting up big numbers in the Superdome. But Eli's been the most money quarterback.
When you frame it that way, I'm not trying to take away from Eli's accomplishments. I'd probably say, I guess I'd say Eli, but then I would volley it back to you and say, yeah, but. If I've got a guy for 15 years, who do I want from the first snap? Even though we started with the Dolphins, I want Drew Brees. I don't even blink. It's Drew.
I
it's not
get
even
it.
close.
The way I would say with Matt Ryan, and I loved him, and I do think he's a Hall of Famer, won an MVP, should have won a Super Bowl. If I had one game to win,
yep.
And Matt Ryan clearly a better regular season quarterback statistically than Eli Manning. Again, the MVP is. If I had one game, I'm going Eli. It's not even close. Like, yeah. Eli's proven himself in the postseason twice.
I know.
If it were one run, then I'd maybe be more on your side if it were just one.
Yes.
But the fact that he did it twice is not a fluke. It's not luck. Like when you go on those runs twice, you are a Hall of Famer. And for me, if you are a Hall of Famer, doesn't matter. Like you get one chance to vote a guy in.
Yep.
Is he in or is he out? And that's it. And to me, I would do that that would be my philosophy on the first ballot.
So you think they got it wrong last night?
I do think they got it wrong.
I think they got it right. By the way, as much as I think that they got it right, I'm very surprised that they got it right, or at least what I deem right. I said yesterday, you asked me straight up, does he get in? Or same question. Right. Should he be? Will he get in tonight? And I said I would not put him in on the first ballot. I've always said that, but I think that they will. So I'm actually surprised that they were more in alignment with what I was thinking. That actually really did surprise me.
Yeah, I thought he was going to get in as well. All right, BT and Sal, brother BT and Sal on the Fan. Our friends at Town Fair Tire remind you that at Town Fair Tire, you always get the guaranteed lowest price on name brand tires from Connecticut to Maine. Nobody beats Town Fair Tire. Nobody. Darren is in Bradley Beach. What's up, Darren?
Hey, what's going on, guys? They got it perfectly right. Eli is not a Hall of Famer. Take away the Tyree catch, take away the Manningham catch. We're not even having this conversation, right? And no one outside the Tri-State thinks Eli is a Hall of Famer. I can promise you that.
That's true. That's true.
Number two, if you want to put Eli in, then you got to put Rivers and Big Ben in. 100%.
Well, they're on. Rivers is on it next year too, as well, right? BT is on that, I think. I'm pretty sure I saw Rivers will be on it next year. Yeah, but I don't think you have to put those guys in. Eli won 2 Super Bowls. They didn't, or I shouldn't say they didn't. Phillip Rivers did not. Let's use Phillip Rivers and Eli Manning for a second. And by the way, Ben's first Super Bowl win, it was all the defense anyway. He was awful in that game. Eli went on 2. Yeah, okay, so Eli went on 2 of the more incredible runs the sport has ever seen. Forget about others. Is Eli a Hall of Famer? You're saying no, Darren. I vehemently disagree with that. Look at his impact on the sport.
Well, can I ask you a question?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
You put Rivers in those same games, same franchise, and you switch roles. What's the result?
Don't know the answer. You'll never know the answer. That's an impossible way to look. It's unfair to Rivers. It's unfair to Eli. The coaches, the injuries, the situations, the opponents. It's impossible to do.
And by the way, in this particular case, I think it's more. Like, it's not like Phillip Rivers was playing on a doormat his entire career and never sniffed the postseason. Mm-hmm. He was in the postseason plenty. They never got through. It was on great teams. They never broke through. So I don't want to hear that, well, what if Eli was there or you put Rivers here? Nonsense. Eli, if anything, was the reason why the Giants took their game to another level twice in the postseason. On the road against better teams that were favored multiple times. That is on Eli Manning to me. They were a regular team, a pedestrian team in the regular season. Phillip Rivers he was on good teams multiple times in the postseason.
How are you looking at this?
I just try to,
just look through it. It's almost akin to
I get used to it. The brother love.
Oh God!
red paint.
I think this
the rings. You got more rings than Belichick.
I do. Yeah. I do. He had a nice ring last night, by the way, huh?
Which one?
Yeah. I've got a lot of rings on. If you guys want to watch this on Twitch, all over the social media sphere, obviously, unfortunately for me and Hoff. But to me, in a lot of ways, Sal, this is akin to what the last caller suggested. I'm not saying it's. Like, there's a level of engagement for me that I will partake in because I do think it's an interesting way to look at it. But because there's no resolution, it's just a. I don't want to say it's a waste of time, but it's really, there's no substance to that because there's too many variables to come up with about, like, if Eli was here and this guy was there. But it's not that dissimilar from, say, and a lot of people say this, whoa, would Derek Jeter be one of the greatest players? I don't think he's one of the top 10, but whatever. One of the greatest players of all time if he was on the Pirates? Well, I don't know. Luckily for him, he was not on the Pirates. Now, he may have been on the Pirates, and he still may have had 3,000 hits and maybe no championship, but maybe he was just that kind of slap hitter, singles hitter, and you take away the great moments, but maybe he was just a hit machine. I don't know the answer. That's why it's so hard to get into.
Right. Would Patrick Ewing have won a ring or two if he were on the Rockets instead of Olajuwon, if you switch spots?
Well, not if Olajuwon was on the Knicks. He wouldn't have.
Well, but that's kind of my point in that Ewing we could look at and say, okay, well, he took those Knicks team. Yeah, all right, he didn't have the greatest help around him, but still, he fell short ultimately. That falls on him. It wasn't like he was playing for some team that was, a lost cause or not even sniffing the postseason.
They were when he was drafted.
Yeah, well, so he built him up. Exactly.
Absolutely.
Well, Phillip Rivers.
Yep, same thing.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's not like you're just saying, well, I'll take a quarterback that never had a chance to perform at the highest of levels on the big stage.
Yep.
Phillip Rivers had that. Whether it's his fault or not, he never broke through. Eli did twice. Brian is in Northport. What's up, Brian?
Hey, guys. How you doing? Thanks for taking the call.
All right.
Hey, listen, I feel like the Hall of Fame in every sport is getting diluted. I look at it now, it's like my kid's travel team. It's like there's an A team, a B team, a C team.
Yeah.
And I feel like it should be Top Gun, right? The best of the best of the best. And I love Eli. But does he put the whole package together? Yes, he had 2 incredible runs. But is he one of the best that ever played the game?
No.
He's
no
not.
Way. There's not.
Best, I think, said it. That he said, if we have to sit and debate it, it's not. Am I going to take my kid to Cooperstown in 20 years? There's going to be 5,000 players to go through? Like, it just seems like Barry Sanders, Hall of Fame, no one has to argue it. If you have to sit here and debate it over and over and over, I feel like there's your answer.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a fair way of looking at it, Brian, and thank you for the call. And normally, I am in that boat. You watch them play, you get that feel. He's one of the best that you've ever seen in his time period or whatever that time is that you're watching him. Mm-hmm. And you immediately say, okay, Hall of Fame player because he's better than all his peers that he played with or as good, whatever it may be, as some of the best ones. With Eli, it's a unique case because if not for the 2, but there's 2 of them. So we're just supposed to ignore that and say it's only a regular season award? Or how do you, whether it's BT, whether it's me, whether it's you, the listener,
Brother Love, Papa Shango,
yeah, Papa
of course.
Shango, right. How do you value where you look at the all-time greats? I cannot ignore or dismiss 2 of the all-time great runs. If he only had 1, even if it were the first one, knocking off the undefeated Patriots and winning that Super Bowl, beating Tom Brady, I don't think I would definitively say Eli Manning is a Hall of Famer.
Okay.
But the fact that he did it twice, and you brought up the point yesterday, like how do you write the history of the sport? I know people have gone over that. I don't necessarily love that, but there is something to be said about that.
It applies to Eli with this situation. That's why I believe he's a Hall of Famer. I'm just trying to separate between Joe Montana and Eli.
So maybe there's another right, but that's a big thing, right?
It's a huge,
Joe Montana,
it's a massive
Hall
gap.
of Famer. Eli Manning, Hall of Famer. Like there's a massive gap. It happens with baseball too.
I agree.
So maybe there's a different conversation. Should there be levels?
No,
Okay.
Deion basically said that, and I don't agree with that. Then what are we doing? The levels to Deion actually, I mean, can you have an ounce of humility? Deion said, which, by the way, I think has kind of changed the tone, the way some of the process goes now. Deion basically said that. He's like, hey, we should be upstairs. The other cat should be downstairs.
Yeah.
Which I don't agree with that.
But there is something to that.
There is. But no, I agree that there is.
Scott Rowland is not Mike Schmidt.
No, but I'm not going to put Scott Rowland in the basement. You're in the hole. You're in the museum. You're in the museum. I would say this, right? So you mentioned Patrick Ewing. Patrick Ewing was drafted by the Knicks. They were a 23 or 24-win team. Hubie Brown, they were terrible. And then, first 2 years with Patrick, they weren't good. Patino comes in. They make the playoffs. Then they start to make their run, and they're basically one of the top 2-3 teams for 10 years in the NBA. We know the Knicks history, right? Patrick Ewing clearly, undeniably elevated the Knicks to the highest level that you could get to without being a champion. I ask you, I want you to answer this. Did Eli Manning elevate the Giants to that highest of level?
Consistently or just in those 2 runs?
Well, that's why it gets a little twisted.
Yeah, consistently, absolutely not.
My answer is absolutely not.
Right.
It was, they were there even when they won one of the Super Bowls. They were a 9-win team, and I'm not taking a shot at them, but it's not like they were 13 and 3, and Eli threw 41 touchdowns. Like Eli was. And I know this will offend some Giant fans. That's not my intention, but this is what I watched for 18 years. Basically, Eli was along for the ride more than I think almost any other Hall of Fame quarterback. Like, he didn't show up and just say, I'm the man, it's my show, and just bang. Just by his sheer greatness, the Giants became that. You had Tiki early, you had Tom Coughlin, you had a great offensive line, you had a terrific pass rush.
Yeah, but he made the biggest plays on the biggest stage multiple times over. And then if that's your take, then fine. Then maybe you should just say he's not a Hall of Famer.
No, but I believe that. Well, I'll meet you here.
Right.
And again, this is unpopular, but whatever. I believe he's less of a Hall of Famer than he is a Hall of Famer.
Right.
I do. I honestly believe that.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, I feel like if you're not going to vote for him to be the first ballot and you're making arguments against him, then maybe that just tells you that he shouldn't be a Hall of Famer.
But why I wouldn't vote that way if I had to vote is because there are other guys in other sports that are gaining entrance into these museums of all-timeness, and they're not all-time. So I'm not going to penalize Eli and hold others to a different standard. But to me, he feels less of a Hall of Famer than actually being a Hall of Famer.
The road to New Orleans on the Fan is sponsored by Bet365 and by Boost Mobile. We continue with the Eli Manning calls. Angelo is in Howard Beach. What's up, Angelo?
Hey, Bob.
Hey, how's it going, guys? I really don't understand how it's even a debate. I mean, Eli Manning is a no-doubt Hall of Famer. I feel like there's no way to justify having the only quarterback with multiple MVP, multiple Super Bowl MVPs, top 12 in every category. If you're a passer, he'd be the only one not in the Hall.
That's why he's going to get in.
It's a team sport, and I feel like the knock on Eli is the 500 record, and I feel like it's more on the mediocrity of the franchise than it is on the quarterback play. He definitely elevated us. Like, yes, he had the 2 runs, more than that. He did. He did.
I watched hold on, Angelo. I watched every game like you. And I respect your opinion. I truly do. And I think a lot of people agree with you. But I think you're overstating the ability of Eli to elevate who the Giants were. I watched every game. Half the times he played, he wasn't even the best quarterback on the field. I thought McNabb was better. I thought Romo, who's not a Hall of Famer, at Romo's apex, I thought Romo was more talented and better. Matt Ryan, I thought, was better. I thought Big Ben was better. I thought Phillip Rivers was better. Not to mention the Bradys and his brother and the Drew Brees. And, come on.
I have some of the numbers up here.
Yep.
How many years do you think in Eli's 16-year career that he led the league in touchdowns?
None.
Okay. He led the league in interceptions.
3 times.
Yeah.
Dude, I've gone over this a million times. Any opinion that I have is, trust me, rooted in deep research.
I'm just saying, like, we should know, and you want to reiterate it and bring up some of these numbers here. Now, he played every game, man of the year.
I know.
Outside of the – and again, if it weren't 2, like, even if it were 1 of those same exact Super Bowl runs and beating Tom Brady, whichever one you think is more impressive, for me, it was the first one. Even if it were just that one, I would sit here today saying Eli Manning is not a Hall of Fame quarterback.
There you go.
But because he did it again,
I respect that. Yeah. And that's ultimately why I'm saying he is a Hall of Famer as well. So I'm crossing the bridge. I'm just letting people know how I'm getting there, because there's a lot of nuance in Eli's career. But to boil it down, what you're saying is one big moment, albeit it was a monster moment, is what puts him in a Hall of Fame for you.
Or 2.
No, one, because you said if it was just the one, then he wouldn't be in. But the other one, the singular addition to the first, which does equal 2, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, it's 1 plus 1 is 2. It is the combination. Yes, brother BT.
Oh, God.
It is the combination of the 2, which to me makes it it's not a fluke. It's not a one-time deal.
I get
but
you.
You could also argue Drew Brees. Okay, well, that's great. He won one Super Bowl. Or Aaron Rodgers, whatever. They won one Super Bowl. So it shouldn't just be about the Super Bowls. Now, in their case, it's more than that. It's the MVPs. It's the statistical numbers, the numbers they put up throughout the course of their career. So there's a lot. The Super Bowl was a culmination. Like, you would argue that without the Super Bowl, Aaron Rodgers would still be a Hall of Fame quarterback without any question about it.
100%.
And probably Drew Brees, because I do think Matt Ryan is a Hall of Fame quarterback, even though he doesn't have the Super Bowl. So I still believe
I tend to agree with that, too.
So Brees would be along those lines as well without the Super Bowl. Eli is only in the conversation not because of a Super Bowl, it's because of 2 Super Bowls.
Now that's 2 moments, and 2 moments that are as big as any moments in the history of the game. Understood. Now take the this is just a random look at it. Take the farmer in Iowa. I know we got a break. Take the farmer in Iowa. Take the outdoorsman up in Montana. I'm just kind of like remote outpost. Take the gold digger up in the South Dakota Black Hills where we get our gold from, and take those people, right? And actually put yourself in their shoes watching Eli's, and like say somehow if they can actually get the red zone up there, if they actually have the Wi-Fi, right? And they're watching the NFL for 20 years. Do you think that person in those 3 spots looks at Eli as a Hall of Famer?
No, I do not.
That's why it's hard.
BT Sal on the Fan.